وعشق ما له آخر وأمجاد مسطرة ترى في أمسها الحاضر دبي زانت الدنيا وعشق ما له آخر وأمجاد مسطرة ترى في أمسها الحاضر تحييكم وتهديكم ورود العمر والخاطر فأهلا يا ضيوف دبي وسهلا في ربوع دبي يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا دبي يا سلام يا دبي يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا دبي It's somewhere you feel alive, forever on your mind. Wherever you close your eyes, Dubai is always in your heart. Dubai is always in your heart. No matter where you go in life, no matter where you go in time, doesn't matter where you are. Dubai is always in.
Dear viewers, welcome again your weekly program My Story. Every week we host a new guest, a new success story from the United Arab Emirates. A success story came from India to the Emirates 15 years ago. Our guest for this week is Mr. Taha Rangwala. Mr. Taha, good afternoon.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, how are you?
Fine, how about you?
Alhamdulillah, everything's okay.
Alhamdulillah. It's our pleasure to host you in our program. Mr. Taha, can you introduce yourself?
وقالب وصفها العالم دبي وكوكب آخر بهالقلوب تتفيا ومن هالليل يتضيع.
So, as you have already told the viewers, my name is Taha Rangwala. We're originally from India. I'm originally from India. My father came to the country in the late 70s and he started this business about kitchen and houseware appliance trading, which has now become a family business that we are dealing with.
سهلا في ربوع دبي يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا دبي يا سلام يا دبي يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا سلام يا دبي.
Mr. Taha, when was the first time you came to the Emirates, and what was the reason for the first visit?
When I came to the Emirates, I was a very young child. In the middle, I had gone back to the US for my education, and I have moved from the US in the late 90s for being part of the family business.
Why did you choose United Arab Emirates?
For several reasons. Of course, my family was based here. In addition to that, the security and the safety, the general environment where personally you feel very safe. That's one of the strong reasons for me and my wife and my children to move here from the US. The other reason is it's a fairly excellent place for an East meets West combination. Of course, as you can see, we're Muslim, and it's not very easy to be Muslim and to be visibly Muslim and practicing Muslims in several countries of the world. UAE offers and Dubai offers a healthy combination of both, to be able to live a life that you would live in the West, along with being able to freely practice your religion and move about in security throughout the country. So there were a lot of personal reasons for deciding to live in the UAE. It was addition to that, obviously, the business and the financial reasons as well. This was a family business set up by my father decades ago, and I was sort of the natural successor for that.
Mr. Taha, where did your business idea came from? Tell us about the company.
It was started out of necessity, I would say. My father in the late 70s and the early 80s was trying to establish himself in the UAE, and he had a really good rapport and business relationship with the Japanese. From that, basically, one of our largest suppliers, Peacock Company Limited from Japan, had a very good business relationship with my father that blossomed into the business that we see today. So, in short, it was basically a meeting of the minds of my father with the Japanese Peacock Company that led to the expansion and introduction of those products in this country.
Has the corona pandemic affected you?
Of course, it has affected everybody. It has affected us. In 2020, the pandemic resulted in a significant drop in demand, which caused, similar to every other business out there, it caused our business to significantly reduce our volumes and our profits. 2021 is also full of surprises, I must add. Now that demand levels have returned back to pre-pandemic levels, we're now seeing cost increases across materials and labor and shipping across the supply chain. So now that we have our demand back, we're now struggling and negotiating with factories and our suppliers to maintain decent cost levels, which are impossibly difficult. So yes, in essence, the corona pandemic has affected us immediately as well as its after effects. But again, I would like to preface that and wrap that around by saying, no, alhamdulillah, generally, our attitude and our approach in life is alhamdulillah, sarra wa zarra, alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. I mean, we are living in a country and we're living in a society where if we have access to clean water and we have people around us who are, vaccinated and, free from corona, that's better than, I would say, 50% of the people living in the world. So you can ask me and I can tell you that, oh my God, my life was better in 2019 because, we didn't have the pandemic. But, the approach I prefer to take is, what God has given us is tremendous and is much better than when I look towards the east and when I look towards the west, I find nothing better than, being in my present position. So yes, could business be better? Of course, but again, alhamdulillah, as-sarra wa zarra.
Alhamdulillah. Mr. Taha, in your career, there is some people who supported you on your successes. There is a specific person you want to thank?
Of course, this would not have been possible without our spiritual guide and our leader, Sayyidina Taha Fakhruddin, who is basically leading our community and instructing all of us to be self-independent and self-supported businessmen. So if there's one individual that I'd like to thank and I'd like to acknowledge where I am today, where my father was before he expired, it would be our spiritual guide and leader, Sayyidina Taha Fakhruddin.
Mr. Taha, what are the challenges that you faced during your career as a private owner, and how did you solve or confront them?
So just to give you a little bit of context, before I was a private owner, I worked for an American company for about 10, 12 years. My father preferred it that way. He didn't want me to just automatically succeed into the business. Working for a large corporation means something very different than being a business owner and working yourself. And the main difference is that I realized being a business owner versus working in a large corporation is everything in the business that goes wrong, you have to fix it. There's nobody you can outsource to. There's nobody you can delegate to. I mean, it could be something like, your internet doesn't work on a particular day, right?
Right.
As mundane as something like that versus something as complicated as your largest customer has now decided to stop working with you. So it could be very difficult, very complex strategic problems, or it could be something as mundane as your internet not working. Guess what? You're the CEO of the company, the buck stops with you, which is very different than working for a large corporate where you just focus on your job and let others handle.
How do you stand out from your competitors?
We've always prided ourselves in offering the best quality out there, which in the field of kitchenware and houseware appliances, which is our business, is Japanese. So we offer the best quality at the best price. Of course, I cannot convince everybody out there to do business with me. People can choose to do business with whoever they want, but the promise and the guarantee that we offer is you will not find a better value for money. Best quality for the lowest price.
Mr. Taha, tell us about what your future for your company, future plan.
A future, bi'Iznillah, it depends on how Allah wants to sort of guide and take our path. Honestly, the future that I look at is year to year. If I am able to, complete 2021 and, get into 2022, alhamdulillah. And if there are roadblocks and if I have to change and I have to sort of course correct, so be it. Thinking about 5 and 10 year plans is good and great, but I consider that to be very hypothetical. I would like to be more practical and think about the current challenges at hand. So my future vision is limited to a year or two at best, depending on how Allah wants to sort of guide me.
What are your expectations for Expo 2021 and how it affected you in your industry?
Expo 2021, I think, pretty much makes Dubai and the UAE, in my perspective, the shopping mall of the world. I mean, it's always been the shopping mall of the world. Now, everybody knows it, right? So, Expo 2021 is great in and of itself because it's going to bring 25 million people into the country and expose them to what we've always sort of been accustomed to and what's natural for us. Growing up here and living here, it's going to accustom 25 million people towards that. In addition, I think it's going to have much more lingering and long-lasting effects, right? Once the 25 million people go back, the word of mouth, the networking, that 25 million people, the exponential effect of that is going to be tremendous. People are now going to, for the people who have been living under a rock and don't know what Dubai and UAE is, I mean, they're now going to know that this is a great place to live, this is a great place to do business, this is a great place to study, this is a great place to, just sort of retire. And I mean, I think all of that speaks towards volumes, towards the vision of the leadership of the country, the leadership in Abu Dhabi, the leadership in Dubai, the leadership in all the other Emirates, where they have had a vision that we always want to be the best in the world. And they may not be there today, but the progress and the path towards being the best is rapid, and everyone in the world is going to see that shortly.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Mr. Taha, a word of thanks to the Emirate and those in charge for the blessing of security and safety.
So I think it was always very important to live in a safe and secure environment. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Being a Muslim, living in other parts of the world can be difficult. I think the pandemic has really brought that out. I mean, today, when you see some of the other countries, unfortunately our home countries as well, the situation may not be ideal. And that's when you really start to value and appreciate how the leadership of the country, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, and the other rulers have, thought 5 steps ahead and really, there's a saying in English, take the bull by the horns, right? They've really taken command of a situation that was out of everyone's control. Nobody can control an airborne virus, but they've really taken control of that, and they've put in place policies and practices which have ensured health and security for everyone. So today, after a year and a half into the pandemic, the results are very clear to see. Across all possible metrics, the UAE is either number 1 or number 2 in terms of number of people vaccinated, in terms of, corona, the fewest number of corona deaths, or what have you. So safety and security today is so much more important than it was in 2019. Alhamdulillah.
At this end, we are the family of My Story program. We would like to welcome once again our guest for this week, Mr. Taha Rangwala, the owner of the company BAVAN. Thank you very much for your wonderful hosting, Mr.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to speak to you. Wa alaikum assalam fi aman.